Well, hello everybody. This is going to be the most dramatic update because we had a medical emergency. I'll put Truman down for a moment. Thank you first for everybody who was sending me all these get well wishes. It became really nice to read them because, like I say, we had a medical emergency. So ordinarily I want to talk about business on this little videos and just the difficulties of running a startup, and let's keep a record of it. But we're largely a one-man band, so if anything happens to me, everything fails. Now this is just for catch up for people who are new here. I was having difficulty breathing. I went to see the doctors and they said first deviated septum, and then they said there's some diseased tissue in my sinuses which needs cutting out. So I'm going to need surgery, and it's supposed to be very simple, 1-day surgery, routine, which I had, and everything was fine, it looked good. And they said that you might have a nosebleed afterwards. And it was the next morning, about 7 in the morning, and it starts bleeding, just drip, 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 drip. And it got to a point where I thought, this is not right. So I went to my local hospital, to the accident and emergency, which fortunately is only about a mile from my home. And they didn't want to look. They said, look, you've had surgery, and if you're really bothered, go to that hospital and talk to them. And as I'm there in the triage office, I was so fortunate I was in the right place. Something bursts and this bright red arterial blood starts pouring out of my mouth. I mean, it literally turned into a zombie movie like that. I've got this nosebleed and I'm coughing, and then I'm choking. And there's something in my throat that was blocking my airway. So I'm coughing to get it out. There's just blood's flying everywhere. They didn't even treat me there. They just put me straight in an ambulance, blue lights, siren all the way to where I had the surgery, which is a hospital called UCL. And they put me in the, I didn't even know that hospitals had this, what was called the resuscitation department. So it's like a regular operating theatre, but it's much larger, so they can get more people around the bed, and it's just all equipped with bringing people back to life. But because I'd been choking and I couldn't breathe properly, and I had uncontrolled bleeding inside of my sinuses, that's where they put me. So they were trying to stabilise me, and then the lady surgeon who had done the original operation, they wanted her to look at me, but she was in surgery, so the moment she was finished, she came out. And then in what is possibly the most painful moment of my life, my nose is very tender. I've just had surgery and it's packed with, gauze and things. They had to just pull all of that out, and they weren't waiting for anaesthetic, so all of that gets ripped out. They put this big tube in there, and it's like really quite long, a big clear plastic tube that is sucking out all the blood and stuff, and it literally looked like they were sucking out my brain. I've got this tube in and I'm watching down, and all this blood and stuff is going through just constantly, and it's just because non-stop bleeding. And my very sore nose, she puts in these nostril wideners, and they're looking in trying to find where the bleed is so they can stop it, and they find this, what the best I could explain was somewhere up in my sinuses something had burst, and they needed to put in these very long pliers, grip the flesh and twist it and try and seal it in place. And I'm not kidding, it looked like it was about that long. It was like so deep inside of my skull. And then I still had the problem with the choking, and they found that there was a very large blood clot that had slipped down my throat, and it was causing me to gag. So then she had these forceps in my mouth to try and reach up and pull out the blood clot, which they couldn't do. They couldn't get hold of it, and they couldn't get it out. So I've got stuff up my nose, stuff in my mouth, I'm coughing and spluttering, and there is literally blood everywhere. So that was dramatic. It was very painful. This was a routine 1-day operation. I give it 1 star, would not recommend. And I've got splints and things up my nose, and I'm just completely full of blood clots and things. But at least I'm happy and I'm smiling and I'm talking. I mean, I wasn't then. In fact, I have a photograph. My wife just we've stabilised me, and my wife's cleaned me up a bit. I said, what do I look like? He said, well, you look a mess. Take a picture, I need to see. So I'll show it to you. It's bloody, it's a bit grisly, so if you're squeamish, look away now and I'll show it. So that was, you can see that I've got a bag of ice on my head and things. I was so cold as well because they wanted to really chill me down to slow everything down and stop the bleeding. So it was just ice on my neck, ice on my head, ice packs just trying, it didn't give me hypothermia. So yeah, I wouldn't have considered myself the sort of man who dies from a nosebleed, but there was a moment when they said, we need to put you in the resuscitation department in case you stop breathing, and we need to, clear your airway. I was like, maybe you can die of a nosebleed. So this was very dramatic, and I thought, while I'm off, I'll be doing light work and stuff. No, I'm not doing anything. I am spending most of my time every few hours just to have to clean everything out. Miserable. I think we're coming from the business. I might talk about this next week when I'm able to talk a bit more. It's something in business, I think they call it inversion thinking. I know there's a set thing for this, inversion thinking. The idea is, normally you think about how do we become successful. But what has happened over the last few months is we have to think about, what do we do to not fail? Or if you think, what would make us fail? So we run out of money, that would be a fail. Or we run out of customers, that would be a fail. So the idea is you look at what would make you fail and then do the opposite. Whatever you do the opposite. But this one was, you can't predict. I've been healthy all my life. I've been going to the gym. Back when I was in my 30s, I started to say that I was looking unhealthy and I was putting on weight. So I quit my entire career as a hotel manager to be a gym manager. I thought, if I'm in the gym all the time, I'll be fit, I'll be healthy. I have been fit and healthy all my life. I've not had any problems. Then all of a sudden, without warning, suddenly, oh yeah, you need a little bit of surgery. Oh yeah, and now you need to stay in hospital because you're really, really ill and you're bleeding out. So that's been my adventure this week. Truman is going to be in charge for another week, I think. I can't do anything. I really can't. I can't even sit and do quiet coding. Everything's too difficult. But his job now is just to give me hugs and make sure that I'm okay.